If you thought the British royal family had finally settled into some kind of calm after everything they went through in 2024, you were wrong. Because 2025 rolled in, and then 2026 followed right behind it, and the drama didn't slow down for even a second. In fact, it escalated. It got louder. It got darker. And in some corners, it got genuinely shocking in ways that even the most seasoned royal watchers did not see coming. We are talking about an arrest. We are talking about courtroom tears. We are talking about a king fighting cancer while his brother fights criminal investigators. We are talking about a Netflix breakup, a security ring of steel upsetting an entire community, and two brothers who still haven't properly spoken to each other. There is so much happening inside this family that it's almost impossible to know where to begin, but let's begin at the beginning, because the beginning tells you everything about where we are now. Let's talk about Andrew. Because you cannot have any honest conversation about royal drama in 2026 without starting with what happened to Andrew. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, who for most of his life was known as Prince Andrew, Duke of York, Queen Elizabeth's favorite son, the one she allegedly always had a soft spot for no matter how much trouble he caused. Well, the trouble finally caught up with him in a way that shook the entire institution to its foundations. On February 19, 2026, on his 66th birthday of all days, Andrew was arrested by Thames Valley Police. Not cautioned, not questioned informally, arrested, taken in. Held for nearly 11 hours at a police station in Norfolk, not far from the Sandringham estate where he had been living since being thrown out of Royal Lodge. He was released under investigation, which in British legal terms means he has not been charged, and he has not been cleared. He exists in this limbo, this profoundly uncomfortable in-between space, while the investigation continues. The specific allegation at the heart of his arrest is that he may have shared confidential government information with Jeffrey Epstein during his time as Britain's trade envoy. Emails released as part of a massive Epstein Files document dump in early 2026 appeared to show that between 2010 and 2011, Andrew had forwarded sensitive information related to his official visits to Vietnam, Singapore, and China, allowing Epstein access to details he had absolutely no right to possess. Andrew has denied wrongdoing consistently and completely. But the emails exist, the photographs exist. And in January of 2026, before the arrest even happened, documents in the Epstein files included photographs that showed Andrew kneeling over an unknown fully clothed woman lying on the floor with images of him touching her stomach. Another set of emails showed Epstein suggesting he introduce Andrew to a Russian woman, and Andrew apparently replying with enthusiasm. And there was an email, perhaps the most damaging of all, written by Andrew to Epstein in October 2012, that read, "We are in this together and we will have to rise above it." That one sentence, that tiny fragment of a private communication, landed like a bomb. The background to all of this is years and years of mounting scandal. It goes back to 1999 when Epstein and Andrew were introduced through Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's girlfriend and eventual convicted sex trafficker. It includes the walks in Central Park after Epstein was released from prison in 2010, having pled guilty to soliciting prostitution from a minor. It includes the 2019 BBC Newsnight interview that is still considered one of the greatest public relations disasters in the history of television, in which Andrew talked about his inability to sweat, about a Pizza Express in Woking, about his excessive honor as a character trait, and somehow managed to make every single answer worse than the one before it. He stepped back from public duties after that. Then in 2022, his mother, Queen Elizabeth, stripped him of his military titles and the use of his Royal Highness. Later that same year, he settled a civil lawsuit brought by Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who had alleged he sexually abused her when she was 17 for a reported £12 million without admitting liability. Virginia Giuffre died by suicide in April 2025, and that death added another layer of weight to a saga that had already become almost unbearable to follow. In October of 2025, Charles made the decision to strip Andrew of his remaining titles entirely. The Duke of York title, gone. The Prince designation, gone. He became simply Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Then he was effectively evicted from Royal Lodge, the 30-room mansion in Windsor he had called home for years, as the Crown Estate moved to reclaim it. And then came the arrest. The first arrest of a member of the British royal family in nearly 4 centuries. The last one was King Charles I. And that did not end well for the monarchy that time either. Charles III responded with a carefully worded statement saying the law must take its course and that the authorities have his full support and cooperation. The Prince and Princess of Wales said the same. Buckingham Palace had apparently not been given advance warning of the arrest, which tells you something about just how separated Andrew now is from any form of institutional protection. A YouGov poll conducted after the arrest found that 82% of people in Britain believed Andrew should be removed from the line of succession. The conversation about whether he legally can be removed, whether Parliament would need to act, whether there is appetite to do so while he has not been formally charged, is ongoing. What is not really up for debate is that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has become one of the most damaging figures in the history of the House of Windsor. And the damage he has done is not just to himself. It is to the institution. It is to the image of a family that is simultaneously trying to present itself as modern, transparent, and trustworthy, while one of its most prominent members is being investigated by the police. Now let's talk about Harry. Because Harry is the other enormous ongoing story, and in many ways it runs parallel to the Andrew story, even though the two men could not be more different in terms of what they are accused of and what they have actually done. Harry and Andrew are both, in their own ways, royal exiles, both pushed to the margins, both caught up in legal battles. But where Andrew's battles involve criminal investigators and allegations of serious misconduct, Harry's battles have been about something more personal and more philosophical. He has been at war with the British tabloid press for years, and in January of 2026, he fought what may be his final battle in a London courtroom. The case was against Associated Newspapers, Limited, the company that publishes the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday. Harry and 6 other claimants, including Elton John, Elizabeth Hurley, and Sadie Frost, alleged that the newspaper group had used illegal methods to gather private information on them going back to the 1990s and into the early 2000s. The alleged methods included bugging cars and homes, intercepting phone calls, and bribing police for sensitive records. A&L denied everything, calling the allegations preposterous and unsubstantiated. Harry took the stand on January 21st, and within minutes of beginning his testimony, his voice cracked. He talked about what the press had done to his wife. He said, "The newspaper's position that he has no right to privacy is disgusting." He talked about his life being commercialized since he was a teenager. He sat in that courtroom, and he was raw, and he was emotional, and he was clearly exhausted by a fight. He has been fighting for years, a fight he believes is connected to the death of his mother, who died in a car crash while being pursued by photographers in a Paris tunnel in 1997. The reason this matters beyond the legal specifics is what so many people believe might happen once these courtroom battles are finally over. Harry has been saying for some time now that he wants to reconcile with his family. He told the BBC in May of 2025 that there is no point in continuing to fight, that he would love reconciliation, and that he does not know how much longer his father has. He said those words about his father, about not knowing how much time is left, and it landed with a particular kind of weight because everyone listening understood exactly what he meant. He is talking about a king with cancer. He is talking about a son who is afraid of running out of time. And he is talking about wanting to come home in some form before it is too late, even if home no longer looks the way it used to. But reconciliation is not a simple thing, and it is not only Harry's call to make. The palace has to want it too. William has to want it. And if you listen to what royal experts are saying about William in 2026, the picture is complicated. Reporters who cover the royals closely have described William as having a ruthless streak when it comes to betrayal. Royal experts have pointed out that he has a long memory, that he has not publicly been seen with Harry since King Charles's coronation in 2023, that the two brothers are not on speaking terms by most credible accounts. The things Harry wrote in his memoir Spare, the things Harry and Meghan said in their Netflix documentary, the way they discussed the institution and the people inside it, those things did not go away. They are still there, sitting in the room, every time someone raises the question of whether these brothers can find their way back to each other. There are reports that Harry has tried to reach out, that those attempts have not been met with the response he was hoping for. And yet there is something about a sick father, about time running out, about two grown men who lost their mother when. They were children. That suggests this story is not finished. Maybe it ends in a courtroom corridor somewhere. Maybe it ends at a hospital bedside. Maybe it ends at a future royal event where they find themselves standing in the same room and something shifts. Nobody knows. But nobody is ready to say it is completely impossible either. Meanwhile, the Sussex operation in California has been going through its own turbulence. Meghan's Netflix deal, the partnership that was supposed to define their post-royal financial independence, has been unraveling in slow motion over the course of 2025 and into 2026. The lifestyle show, with Love Meghan, ran for 2 seasons on the platform and received reviews that ranged from mixed to genuinely brutal. Critics pointed out that it was not filmed in her real kitchen. They pointed out the moment where she repackaged Trader Joe's peanut butter pretzels into plastic bags in a way that implied she had made them herself. One reviewer called it an utterly deranged voyage into the center of nothing. Those are not the words that launch a dynasty-defining lifestyle brand. By March of 2026, Netflix had officially withdrawn as an equity partner in Meghan's lifestyle company as ever. The brand, which sells jams, teas, honey, candles, and wine at prices that attracted their own headlines, was going to have to go it alone without Netflix's financial backing. The streaming deal had already been downgraded from a comprehensive overall deal to a more limited first-look arrangement in the summer of 2025. No third season of the lifestyle show has been announced. The only confirmed project still in development is a film adaptation of a novel called Meet Me at the Lake. For two people who arrived in California in 2020 with a $100 million Netflix deal and the apparent intention to build a media empire, the current situation looks considerably more modest than that original ambition suggested it would. To be fair to Meghan, and fairness is something that gets applied to her very unevenly in most media coverage, the as-ever brand did sell out its first product launch in under an hour. People are interested. People are buying. The question is whether that interest is sustainable, whether it is driven by genuine product love or by curiosity about the Duchess, and whether Meghan can build something that outlasts the intrigue and stands on its own commercial merits the way she clearly wants it to. The answer to that question is still being written. Back in England, in Windsor specifically, William and Kate have been trying to build something too, just a different kind of something. At the end of 2025, they moved into Forest Lodge, an 8-bedroom mansion in Windsor Great Park that they are calling their forever home. It has a ballroom. It has a tennis court. It has elaborate cornicing and Venetian windows and vaulted ceilings and significantly more space than Adelaide Cottage, the 4-bedroom house they had been living in with 3 children since 2022. The move makes sense for a family that is growing, that values stability and routine, that needs space not just for themselves, but for the small army of security personnel who have to live and work around them. But the move has not been without controversy. When William and Kate relocated to Forest Lodge, a security buffer zone of approximately 150 acres was established around the property. 6 miles of what locals described as a ring of steel appeared, complete with new fencing, CCTV cameras, and no entry signs. Public land that had been accessible to walkers, to families, to people who had used Windsor Great Park for generations, was suddenly closed off. Two families who lived in properties near Forest Lodge were apparently asked to vacate their homes to create the security perimeter. They were reportedly offered alternative accommodation, but the principle of the thing, the idea that ordinary people can be told to leave their homes because a member of the royal family wants more privacy, did not sit well with everyone. Local residents expressed their frustration. Some were described as being in tears over the loss of access to woodland they had walked through their whole lives. Anti-monarchy campaigners called it an abuse of power and pointed out that Windsor Great Park is Crown estate land, a public asset, and that effectively privatizing a chunk of it for personal security reasons raises serious questions about accountability. And they are not entirely wrong to raise those questions. William and Kate are popular. Their intentions seem good. But popularity does not insulate anyone from legitimate scrutiny, and the Forest Lodge situation showed that even the most well-regarded royals can find themselves on the wrong end of a public conversation if they are not careful about how their choices land. All of this is happening while Charles is still on the throne, still working, still showing up, still fighting both his illness and the perception that he is not fully in control of his own monarchy, because that perception has become a real issue. Throughout 2025 and into 2026, there have been persistent rumors and reports that William is already effectively calling the shots, that he is running things from the shadows while Charles provides the public face. Charles is reportedly frustrated by these rumors. He waited his entire adult life to be king. He has been in this role for only a few years, and he is not remotely ready to be treated as a ceremonial figurehead, while the real power has quietly migrated down a generation. Royal experts who spoke to us weekly in late 2025 were fairly clear that Charles is still very much in charge, that the image of William operating as a shadow king is more media narrative than operational reality, and yet, Charles is visibly less well than he was 2 years ago. He has been photographed using a walking stick not as a style choice, but as a physical necessity. There are insider accounts of a man who knows his time is finite, who is leaning on William, and Kate more heavily than before, who is described in some reports as frail and increasingly dependent on support. He announced at the end of 2025 that his cancer treatment schedule could be reduced, which was genuinely good news. But he is still in treatment. The cancer is still there. And every public appearance is now watched with a particular intensity by people who are trying to read something in his face. His walk, his energy level, that the palace will never officially confirm or deny. The institution has never been in a stranger moment. You have a king who is ill but refuses to be defined by his illness. You have a prince who is preparing to be king but isn't quite yet and who is navigating the complicated politics of stepping up without stepping on. You have a princess who nearly died and came back and is now arguably carrying more of the weight of the monarchy than anyone was prepared for. You have a prince who left and wants to come back but can't quite figure out how. You have a former prince who was arrested on his birthday. And somewhere in Montecito, California, you have a duchess selling artisan jam and trying to figure out what her life looks like now that the Netflix machinery is running a little more slowly than it used. 2. What holds all of this together, or tries to, is the idea of the institution itself. The monarchy is something bigger than any individual within it. The crown is something that persists through illness and scandal and family fracture and tabloid lawsuits. Queen Elizabeth understood that instinctively. She lived it for 70 years. Charles understands it intellectually and is working hard to embody it. William is learning it, making some mistakes along the way, doing more things right than wrong. And the children, George and Charlotte and Louis, are growing up inside all of this, being shielded from the worst of it by two parents who are fiercely protective and who know from their own childhoods exactly what it costs a child to grow up, in the full glare of public scrutiny without adequate protection. People who dismiss the British royal family as outdated, as irrelevant, as a soap opera dressed up in ermine and pageantry are not entirely wrong. There is something undeniably theatrical about all of this, but there is also something genuinely, achingly human about it. A father who is sick, brothers who are estranged, a family that has been through cancer, scandal, grief, and public humiliation all within a few short years. A woman who came back from illness and keeps showing up. A young man in a courtroom with tears in his voice, talking about his dead mother and his struggling wife. A king who has waited decades for a role he may not get to fully inhabit. The drama of the royal family is not interesting because it is glamorous. It is interesting because underneath the tiaras and the state banquets and the formal portraits, it is recognizably, painfully ordinary. These are people dealing with things that millions of people deal with: illness and estrangement and grief, and ambition and failure and love. They just do it in front of the whole world, with cameras pointed at them every step of the way, and with centuries of institutional weight pressing down on their shoulders at the same time. That is the royal drama right now. Not one story, many stories, all tangled together, all pulling in different directions, all heading toward some resolution that nobody can quite see yet. Andrew under investigation, Harry in a courtroom, Charles on a throne he refuses to leave, William at a gate he isn't quite ready to walk through. Kate moving forward with the quiet determination that has become her defining characteristic. And somewhere, in the background of everything, the question that nobody has fully answered yet. What does this family look like in 10 years? What does the monarchy look like when George is grown and the current generation has handed everything over and stepped back? Whatever the answer is, it will be shaped by everything that is happening right now, by every choice made, and every bridge burned, and every door left either open or closed. And that is why, no matter how complicated and exhausting and occasionally infuriating it all gets, you simply cannot look away.